All right, good morning. And good morning to you. Peace, y'all. See you in our live comments section. So, I'm going to do a few introductions. My name is Jay. I'm the owner of section8consulting.com. And today we're going to talk a little bit about renters and credit, home ownership, and your credit. That includes credit history, scores, and so for you renters, homeowners, there are different levels of credit they consider depending on the circumstance. It also depends on the PHA, and it can also very well depend on the locally, depending where you buy a home. So I'm going to try to explain the easiest way I know how this works out. So for many of you, you have a singular linear concept of credit. It doesn't work in the same ordinary fashion it would if you were using it under ordinary circumstances. You're using this inside of a federal program for housing or for renting. And so there are definitely a different set of rules. But first, we're going to talk about the lowest standard that they offer in terms of this. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what the minimums are. So credit score wise, whether or not your PHA is going to check your credit, a lot of them do, some of them don't. So it's not a requirement across the U.S. It's not written into federal law that when trying to rent or get involved in home ownership programs, that the PHA must check your credit. They don't all do it, okay? Some do. The first thing we need to keep in mind is if you're going to get involved in renting of any type, using your voucher, your housing choice voucher to rent, then you got to want to make sure your credit score is at least 620. It is really preferred to be a 670. If you're going to get involved in HUD home ownership programs where you use your voucher to pay against your own mortgage under HUD home ownership, then I can tell you that underwriting at a minimum is going to request a 670. Okay, that's the bottom line or threshold there. So we'll say a few more good mornings here to you guys in our live chat. Sheila Davison, good morning and happy holidays. The Esther, good morning to everybody. Muskogee Land. Okay, this relates to my plans for Gen X Sustainable Retirement Community. It could. It certainly could. So let's go back to the basic factors here. 670 is really where even our office would request most clients be at. Now, if you're renting a 620, it would be your buy-in. If you're doing home ownership, 670. All right. So I'm also going to talk about fixing credit here. That's the part you guys want to stick around for because I've been able over my career to successfully help people reverse a lot of their bad marks on their credit history. I am not a credit consultant. I'm a federal consultant, okay, for housing. But through solving my own issues, I learned it was much easier than I had thought. Now, that means I was able to resolve a number of matters and clear part of my history that may have been worked against me for a short period of time. So, speaking on that, credit's going to be divided up in about 5 different segments. Your payment history represents roughly 35%. Okay. Amounts owed, about 30%. Your length of your credit history. Now, length of credit history means 2 different things in terms of this. It represents 15% of your score, but that history could mean the length in which you've had credit since you were old enough to have it. And your history could also be an indicator of other bad marks on your credit history where you miss payments. So that 15% of your credit score is based on those 2 factors inside of one. New credits for those that may be opening up loans and so on. One of the number one things I tell clients is once we engage in trying to work with credit, we want to make sure you're not in the background opening up more loans and credit cards. Okay, that usually works out to be pretty bad. So usually clients, I ask them to cease all activity as far as loans, credit cards, and so on. Moving from there, you look at whether you want to rent in the market we're currently in. A lot of landlords are wanting a much higher credit score than ever. The gold standard's been around 620. So you're going out there. Say you've gotten past your PHA, whether they check your score or not. Now you're dealing with the open market. You're dealing with a landlord, and so just 5, 6 years ago, it would have been quite acceptable to have a 620. And prior to that, probably 10 years, you'll see a lot of old publications indicate that you could get a 580. That's old news. You're not going to be able to rent or own a home with a 580 score, okay? And there are different variations of that being published, but that's like 15 years ago. Doesn't work, okay? 620, probably about half the places out there. It's highly preferred, especially if you're going to go and own a home and you're dealing with HUD ownership, that you're at a 670. And it's not that far of a distance between the 620 and obviously the 670, which would give you a much more preferred interest rate in terms of a home loan. So now let's kind of dive into, we understand the basic concepts, the basics, where you're at the minimum and the maximum level of credit. We understand the 5 elements that affect your credit. Now let's talk a little bit more about how that will work if you want to change things for yourself. Now, many people have debts out there, whether you have not made a payment on a credit card, you've got medical debt and others. So in order to find out what you have, we need to understand a third element to the system. There is 2 credit ranking systems out here, okay, whether it's in America or on the planet. There's your FICO score, which comes from myfico.com. That's MYFICO.com. MyFICO handles FICO number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and I think upcoming even 12. Did you know that each one of those numbers represent a different area of your credit? In other words, you're looking at 3, 4, 5, and all these other numbers, right? All the different added levels over the years. So each level of that may indicate, okay, so as an example, FICO 5 represents a credit score, a different kind of credit score that would affect you if you were purchasing a home. FICO number 8 represents those that have small loans and credit cards. And I don't know about the other numbers, but some of them are likely to indicate a different credit score based on your spending habits, and also whether or not you have home loans. So you can see that each credit score is now, they're now pulling different credit scores for each way that you borrow and use money through credit. And so when you look at your banking app and you get a free score, it's not exactly what you're going to need. So let's zoom it back, digress. Now we talked about MyFICO and the old FICO score, right? Now we know that it has up to 12 levels, and each one of those levels can affect a different way that you're using your credit, whether it's credit cards, home ownership under FICO 5, or otherwise. Okay. Now let's talk about the other new up and comer that's now on the market and has been in here for a little bit now. It's called a Vantage score, BINATGE, I believe, Vantage score. That's most frequently associated with all your banking apps. So you go to Wells Fargo, you log in, it says, hey, we've got a free credit score for you. That's usually Vantage. Now, there are 3 different types of Vantage scores, because why? We have 3 different credit reporting bureaus. So you may have a Vantage score that's under Equifax that gives you this really crazy high number. But when you go over to the FICO company, myfico.com, and log in, you get this much lower number. So what is it that people are really looking at? Well, to be honest with you, it's becoming rather mixed. As a gold standard, I recommend that all people go into myfico.com, which is the actual FICO company. A lot of you guys get involved in clicking on these really cheap credit scores that you can purchase off Google. A lot of that shit's to collect your data and information, and then you're paying a lot more than you actually would dealing with the actual FICO company. So MyFICO, I would recommend going there. And they charge $45 for 1 month, but you get all 3 bureaus, you get all 3 scores, and you get some other critical information. That is when you miss payments, and you're in collections. It tells you who those collection agencies are, so you can contact them. Also, it shows you a risk score at the very bottom. You scroll down, you'll see that you have a risk score. The higher that risk score, the less. So you could have a marvelous credit history, but if over time, since you were able to have credit, you've been involved in early warning. In other words, you're chargeback queen that you like to open up a lot of chargebacks, then you may have a high risk score. In other words, even though you have good credit, they don't trust your ass, because there are people out here that do it. I'm in a business. I just received a chargeback not more than 2 days ago for about $1,000. It happens every Christmas. People think the people that run that scam, what they do is they get around Christmas, they're sitting there and they can't even pay the light bill. And then they look at whoever they paid, right, past 6 months, and they target whoever they paid the most, and they come up with some bullshit excuse to charge back. And so then you end up, a company like mine would have to fight that, right? We had to send them to court. But as an example, that would be a reason why you would have a high risk score, and even in the future be blocked from even using your cards in stores, because nobody trusts you anymore. You constantly open up chargebacks. It didn't take much either, because even when I look at my clients and they book services, we get a risk assessment score. Some of you guys are in the 50s, man. I mean, it's literally, you practice that stuff like a full-blown con artist. You hit everybody with chargebacks. So that risk assessment score can damage you severely. So for those practicing that nefarious behavior without good cause, you'll ruin yourself, okay? In fact, I know my company turns away business. I terminated 11 cases last year over that. People with risk scores around 50. It just tells me that they're there to steal something and then get their money back. So moving on from risk assessment score, the reason you're going to want these scores is not so you can marvel at your score. It clearly is going to demonstrate whether or not you're going to meet the 620 or 670. All right. Now, as a renter, that's really important in most states, because if you're going to rent and you're not at a 720, then you're wasting your time going out trying to do this. It means you're going to probably only be able to rent in the worst kind of property, if that, or ones that don't check it. And so if you were at a 5.8, let's say you're in the 500s, you've got a few things on there. You missed a few payments, you're in collections for 2 or 3 things. These things can be absolved, okay? And they're not going to, let me tell you something else. It's not going to be absolved by you guys going and running to Equifax and TransUnion and disputing everything, okay? Look, those agencies, these credit agencies, they're data brokers. In other words, they're pulling data on the open market. And if they have enough verifications in the open market that you have these debts, then it wouldn't matter what you put in there, okay? It wouldn't matter at all what you say. You're going to lose the ability to remove that. So a lot of you guys can run to these attorneys that post ads all over Google, and they're charging, $200-300 a month, and you're in for about 12 months, and they're not doing shit, right? So they're taking all this money. You're too scared to open a chargeback because why? They're an attorney. And so now you're in for $300 a month for all their good wisdom. But what they're doing is they're just sending out dispute letters, right? Something you can do in 2 seconds, but that doesn't fix anything. So let's talk about the actual way to fix this and then actually improve your credit, because even I was foolish enough to fall into that trap with the whole attorney game and paying them. And over time, I learned what they were doing, and it was rather impractical and easy. Now, clearly, you got to resolve debts. But so, first of all, looking at my FICO, once you have the names of the agencies, it means you can contact them. The same deal that you can, an attorney or a credit repair company, you can negotiate it yourself. And I'm going to tell you the exact dialogue you're going to want to use. It works 99% of the time. In fact, I got so good at it that I was rather shocked that I ever paid anybody to help me do this. But so beyond that, first thing clients need to do is look at any negatives they've got. We need those debts to be in collections, especially if they're credit cards. So you decided your shit's bad. Fuck it. I'm gonna run the card all the way down to 0, and then now I'm just not gonna pay it. Right? It's Christmas. This is the last big one. I'm gonna, swipe the card, burn it, and just not pay it. Right? I've had enough of life. Everything's horrible. Let's tank the card. Right? Some of us have had those moments, right? So what you need to do is you need to wait for the credit card company to give up and send it to collections. Why? Because the collectors, not the bank, when the bank still owns the debt, You can't negotiate with those bastards. Same thing with the hospital. You went down there, you checked in the ER because you knew damn well you got no health insurance. So you sat in that ER, you went in there and you knew you were going to get robbed, right? So you go in, blood pressure check, $80,000, right? And you got no way to pay this, but hey, that's medical care to get it for free in America. So you got that bill, then they send it down to collections. Look, a lot of that stuff, and according to new legislation, most medical debt at this point has been wiped off most people's credit history. So I just want to bring that up. So if you have previous medical debt, they wiped off, I think, 51 billion. So I don't believe that credit medical billing from hospitals no longer represents billing on your credit score. So most of you should have no medical on there. They've eliminated that altogether. So we should just be dealing with collections. So the credit card company has it for 6 months, and then they send it to collections. So by looking on the credit report by FICO, you're Googling the information for the company. And believe it or not, a lot of these collection agencies are connected. They're actually subsidiaries of each other. They're starting to consolidate. In other words, you call one, and he'll bring up that out of nowhere that, oh, by the way, we see you have 6 other collections. How does he know that? Because most of them are connected now. So what is the dialogue you're using? Because you're wondering, I just paid a fancy lawyer like $1,200. I got suckered into this deal, and all they sent out was some bullshit disputes, right? Well, when you call a collection agent, there's a few firm ways you want to address this. One, you make the call, you make a disclosure of who you are, and then ask to speak to somebody there. Once you do that, after you sit there with your tablet, you write down each one of your collections. So I've got a collection here for $1,200 for a Visa. When you get on the phone with the debt collector, this is a way to resolve debt. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it without paying some money, okay? If you want to go gamble and pretend like you can get it just erased, nobody really can do that. Or by chance, maybe the credit bureau can take it off. But remember, credit companies can put it back on there. So you got a $1,200 debt. You got it written on your napkin. And so let me tell you what the industry standard is. And I learned this also from my own cousin, which is an attorney out of Louisiana. So any debt you have, the customary debt to argue that debt with that company should be 40%, okay? All these ads about, we can resolve your debt for pennies on a dollar, that's not true. Even debt collection companies have a line limit, and it's right at 40%, okay? So if you offer that, you're likely to be able to end the conversation fairly early. So I'm going to do a quick back and forth as if I were talking to the company to give you a good idea. So I disclose who I am. I understand you all have a $1,200 debt. So here's the deal. I'm going to make one offer today. And then if you don't accept it, we can't come to an agreement for it to remove the debt. You must clearly say remove, not just pay on the debt, to remove the debt. Okay? If we don't come to an agreement, I'm going to hang up and you will never fucking hear from me again. Ever again, for any reason. I will let the debt die and wait 7 years. When you do that, you set a very clear example to that person there. Now, their job is to amp up that 40% that you're offering to settle the debt for. So you're at $1,200. You're making an offer $400 to remove the debt. Now, it's really not that legal for them to just simply remove the debt, but money talks, bullshit walks. A lot of them, they're not going to issue you a letter, okay? You're hoping for a receipt, they're not. I found that almost all of them are pretty honest about this. Once you make that offer and they accept, right at about 30, sometimes as late as 40 days, you'll notice the debt go. So you offer the 40, and so the little person, the first person you get in the phone hall where everybody's screaming and talking over each other, and you're just another person calling in the big call center, right? So their job is to drive that number up, and you tell them, look, I'm offering 40. That is my one and only offer. Let me speak with your manager. Okay. And then you'll notice is it won't be a quick transfer because that person's going to talk to the other person. And what he's going to explain is when you hang up, you're not going to pay again. Oh, let's talk about our office manager here. Another one of my office managers. She decided to visit us. So now you've made that argument with the standard person on the phone, and they go to get the manager. Now the manager is only one chair over, right? They've been probably part of the call the whole time. At that point, they'll try one more attempt to get you above 40%, and then tell them, look, this is the last time I'm going to offer this. It's 40%, or I hang up, and you'll never, ever hear it again. You might as well go sell the debt to another company, whereas I will go get it fixed. Every type of debt I had related to a collection at one point when I had medical problems and couldn't pay my own damn bills. Everyone that I did that way worked, okay? But the key thing is you spoke with them, you made it clear that once you hung up, you're not calling back. I'll let the debt just fall off. Every one of them, after they understood very firmly that once I hung up that phone and never called them again, they were prepared, because it's better for them to accept the 40% than nothing, okay? And so I won every single one of that. And it was only a handful, but 40% is customary. You must say repeatedly, this is to remove the debt, not to pay on the debt, not for the debt to remain. If you cannot verbally guarantee you're going to remove the debt, then I'm not interested. Okay. And they're not going to give you a receipt for that. Okay. They'll give you a receipt for paying. I've never found any of them that have gone back on their word. In fact, a few of them actually, they did it within a day. So now they're not supposed to be removing these debts. There's rules against doing that, but it's a collection agency. What do they give a shit? They bought that debt probably for $100, $200. You just offered them $4, right? On a $1,200 debt. Look, that's $200 and 8 minutes of talking. That collection company is not the credit card company that lost the $1,200. They've already sold the debt. So yes, debts get sold for pennies, but not to you, baby. Never to you. They get sold for pennies to the collection agency. The customary line is 40%. Don't go above, don't go below. Okay. If you go way below 40%, they're going to laugh you out the room. Okay. So you come in there. Okay. I heard Jay talk about this in the video. I'm going to offer them 10%. Okay. But what that's going to do is it's going to piss them off, and the debt's going to get sold again, and you're going to be in limbo, unable to solve it. So if you can afford to pay 40% of the debt, then a lot of your debts could be removed. Now, if you have larger debts, that's a bigger issue. Okay. I'm talking about for debts for around 2,000 or less. So this may be a practical circumstance for many of you that have smaller debts. But remember, if your debt is still at the original creditor, there's not a lot you can do with that. They're going to want all their money. You got to wait till it goes to collections. And don't be scary. You can get on the phone, talk to them people. And look, just because you talk to them does not reset anything. That's an old myth from the 80s. Nothing's been reset. Okay. So it'd be better to try to settle those type of debts if you can. Now, if you actually have material evidence and you want to dispute it, and you actually weren't late or did pay that debt, then you could materially submit that to the credit bureau itself. So let's move on to the second part, Vantage scores. Vantage scores, or a secondary system put in place. Vantage scores mainly focus on a very narrow beam. Unlike FICO, that looks at home ownership, the purchase of a vehicle. Remember, I told you FICO 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 different FICOs, and they're becoming more individualized. In other words, they give you a special credit score just for buying a home. They give you a special score just for buying a car. So they're all different. Now, a lot of you believe that your one credit score is how they make decisions in underwriting for everything that you're buying, getting, or even credit cards. It's not. FICO has scores for cars, scores for houses, scores for loans, scores for major loans, scores for your business, so each one. So it's very different. Vantage that score only indicates your credit health related to credit cards. How do I know that? I've got about 52 credit cards. Okay. I just cut up about 30 of them the other day. Most of them are from department stores. Okay. So what I'm going to tell you is, beyond your efforts here to resolve debts, that's not the only factor that's going to affect you. Let's say that you don't really have any collections, or maybe you're late. Now, if you're late on payments, there's not much you can do about that. My hope is you're not more than a month late, no more worse than 90 days. But if you are late and you're way over late, then you need to resolve that debt through the collections by negotiating, okay? Because you sure as hell don't want to show somebody you're 152 days late, okay? So you need to get those down. Now, the managed scores that I mentioned that you get from your free banking apps, that only represents your ability to get credit cards. That's it. So that fabulous to the moon score is not real. It's not reality. Okay. Nor not a HUD, not a landlord. So we look at a managed score to determine your worthiness with that. That's why I always laugh when people come to me. Oh, well, I looked up, I went to Wells Fargo or Capital One. It says I got a 900 score. And then you look at their FICO and it's in the fucking toilet. I'm like, okay, well, that's great. That means that you can get a $40,000 credit limit at Macy's, but you can't buy you can't get a loan on a pair of shoes, you know? So you can't even buy a lawnmower with that. So that's the thing, guys. Free is equals delusional. Anything you buy for free in terms of credit score is not going to help you. You got to go to the actual FICO company, which is myfico.com. I often ask myself why the FICO company has the words MY in front of it. Apparently, somebody else bought out the word FICO. So, but anyways, the actual FICO company is myfico.com. And I even had clients ask me, well, Jay, what about I just get the free credit score? Well, that's fine on there, but it only covers one agency. When you go to underwriting for major purchases and rentals, they look at all three bureaus, okay, not one. So if you go to MyFICO and you get the free credit score from one agency, it might indicate a little help. But let me tell you something. Equifax is the major player of the three. And if it turns out the landlord's using just that, then you could be in trouble. That's why you can have really great with credit with one agency and then horrifying credit with another. And the biggest impact for most bills on the market is going to be Equifax. Okay, that's what's important. You write down that and get the information for those you're in collections for. And if you're in late payments, sometimes if you got a lot of late payments on a car, sometimes it's better to let that thing go to collections, wait 6 months, have it charged off and sold as a debt, and then solve it that way, than for you to sit around and keep that credit line open, showing you're 400 days late. I'm serious. It's horrible, but that it's easier to actually resolve the card and let it die than it would be to let it remain on your credit score for the next 7 years. But think carefully before you do that. Now let's talk about debt to income ratio, DTIs. Look, guys, the old standard of 30% debt. Let's think about this carefully. So you and your wife get out all your credit cards. Oh, we got $72,000 in debt. Okay, well, that's not so much of a problem. But here's the deal. They look at income debt as income debt individual each card. They look at the whole plus each card. You got one card, you're running at 90%, you're going to have to bring that down. If you really want an even higher preferred score and opportunity, then you're going to want every card at 30% or low, okay, around there. But if you really want to show that you're doing well, you need to get it down there like the wealthy do it. That'd be 10% or less. If you want to be people like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, where they're worth almost $1 trillion, those guys, their debt ratio is 1%, okay? And those percentages, when you get below 10%, it actually indicates the number of people in America that have that lowest of debt. So getting your debt ratio 10% or less is going to give you a big boost. Now, credit mix plays an important factor. Look, if you've already got bad credit, you're trying to resolve the problem, the last thing you need to be doing is going out there opening more credit cards. You need to cease all that activity. No hits on your credit. Each one of those, you can end up with a 5 to 30 point hit, and that hit can last for 2 years, which means you got to sit on your hands while you're waiting for that thing to go back up. And it goes up slowly. Thankfully, in the old days, it went down and it stayed down for 2 years exactly, and then went up. Thankfully, they've resolved that, and now you get drip fed your score back up. So it slowly comes up as time passes. It becomes less effective. Same thing with debts, but you don't really want to wait that out. So getting debts down at below 30 and even better at 10% is good. And then looking at your debt ratio on every single card you've got. Now, loans are a different story. Just keep paying your loans, but don't open new ones. Don't be late. That's the thing there, okay? So I'm gonna hop in here. Hopefully that helps. The video is not designed to be a whole solution, okay? I am not by any means an expert in anything other than housing, but I have dealt with this, and I've dealt with it personally when I threw out and crushed several discs in my back. Then magically, I get healed from that, and I end up with a kidney stone about the size of a marble in my kidney, and then an insurance company that watched me suffer for a year and a half. Uh, I couldn't even. I was bent over like an old lady just to get down the stairs, and this insurance company denied the shit out of everything. And so you imagine being an unimaginable pain for a year and a half. And so that period of time in my life, 2 years, while I was making videos, you guys didn't know it, but at that time, it damn near destroyed me financially. And so I found myself in a lot of credit issues. But I, like most people, I started examining everything on the market. First, I looked at all the ways to get things removed the easy way. But in the end, I learned just about every way that's easy is unrealistic. So it came down to debt settlement. And so I ended up settling debts, and I got a nice discount on the debts. And all of it got removed. And I was very pleased. And then I watched my score go up about 200 points. It's very quick too. When debts disappear, it's fast. And so it is just that easy on solving debts if you can get on the phone and discuss it the way that I'd suggested. Um, that did a lot for me in terms of now I have an amazing credit score. That's why I've got over 52 cards, 30 of my clipped up and put on the community page on YouTube. Um, because sometimes there's just too many cards. So the last thing I'm going to talk to you about is credit mix. It's imperative you guys always keep a good running mix of personal loans, at least one personal loan, your obvious credit cards, a car loan, or a home loan. Okay. Now, I'm not asking anybody to remain in debt, but we need to have some recent activity in the last 2 years establishing two of the three. So you have a good credit mix. Just because you've been a master of owning credit cards and you've got this thrilling high, remember what I told you about FICO? There's individual scores for credit cards, car loans, home loans, and so on. Well, that's why credit mix matters a lot. It represents 10% of your score. So having a personal loan or an auto loan plus your credit cards show you have a good credit mix. Staying out of early warning systems, EWLs. Stop opening chargebacks. You will ruin yourself with that, okay? Unless you have an absolute legitimate fucking reason, don't do it. You will get risk assessments, and companies will turn you down all day. And for those that get a risk assessment above 50, even Walmart will decline your card. Your payments will get declined everywhere online. You're not going to understand why you had to use your card 3 times. That'll be why. Okay. You open up more than 3 in a year, you're going to be ESW. Not only that, they'll block you from banking and everything. So, and that all comes behind having too many fraudulent chargebacks. So it's a real problem. Now, I work in an industry where I'm already working with low-income people, so there is a high risk level that people try to pay me with their credit cards, and then the minute they mismanage their money, and then they'll find some reason to open up a chargeback in my company. We had a problem with it one year. It was pretty bad. It wasn't because of delivery of service. It was because it was just that attitude of, okay, well, here's how I get some free money. I'll get free service, then get my money back, and it's treated as a game. That game will destroy you for the next 10 years. And once you're on ESW, they're not going to take you off. Early warning systems, you could end up destroying yourself for the next decade. So I'd warn against that. So going to mypico.com, getting your credit scores, getting FICO 5 to indicate for housing. Rentals be number 8, number 9 would be for rentals. Improving your credit score by bringing your debt ratio on each credit card down to 30%. Loans don't count that way. They're just showing longevity and payment history. So loans are based on longevity. The longer the loan, the more stable they're going to consider you as long as you don't miss a payment. I encourage you guys that have 5-year loans and longer on personal, business, or otherwise to never miss payments there. You can miss a payment on your credit card. Don't miss those, okay? Because it's going to show clearly what your overall length of your credit history is going to be. And if you screw that up, then you're in some trouble. Resolve debts at customary rates, same thing the attorneys do with their silly demand letters. You call, and you can usually customarily request the removal of the debt for negotiation of 40% of the debt. Especially works with really old debts. Though, if they've only had that debt for about a year, you may have to go from the call center worker all the way up to the manager or the vice manager. But I had no problems resolving my own debts that way. And some of the largest debts, you can actually ask for below 40%. So say you got 20,000, you might be able to resolve that for a couple of grand. So you may only offer 3%. But what you're not going to do is have a $50 debt and then try to negotiate 40%. Okay. Do not call any collection agency and say, hey, I'm going to offer you customary 40% of my $200 debt. They're going to hang up on your ass and then they're going to sell that debt again. Okay. Or they may split it in half and make it twice the problem for you. So if you have a small debt, just pay the bastard off. It is not worth that. But when you pay it off, don't just pay it off. You get on the phone with them. I'm prepared to pay my debt, but here's the deal. You got to remove it. Okay. If you go and pay that debt without arguing they remove it, then you just fucked yourself for the remainder of the 7 years. I had a lady, man, she goes, oh, yeah, I went and paid all my debts. I said, you just paid all your collections? Oh, yeah. I said, honey, well, you just owned them for 7 years. So just ring my office back in about a decade and we'll discuss any potential to ever have owning a home. You know, she should have argued for removal. That's the key word. I'm not paying on the debt. I'm not paying the debt off. I'm paying for removal, period. And customary rates from any debt from around, let's say 300 all the way to the sky. And a customary rate. That's customary. You guys don't know about it, but collection agencies know it because that's what they're instructed to do if they're contacted by a legal firm or anybody that's got any common sense. So getting these debts off, yeah, if you've got a credit card where you've got 19 missed payments, let it go. Let it go. Wait for it to go to collections in about a year and then go negotiate the debt. Do you really want to pack around a credit card that's going to show that you've got 19 missed payments, right? And you go sit on that for the next 7 years. It'd be easier for that thing to go to collections, pay the debt, and then have the whole thing disappear than for you to walk in circles in your house slippers and wonder, well, when the hell is this ever going to come off, right? By then, you will have been from 87 to 107 waiting for that. So we don't want that for you. Now, but before you do that, I would advise consulting an expert before you decide to quit paying on any credit card. I'm just saying that in principle, that works, but you should make that decision carefully. I'm not advising anybody to stop paying. But if you already know materially how things do get removed, then it's only logically that it would work for that methodology. Now, many of you are being new to this channel. You will have came here and you will share your opinion. Some of you will even share your displeasure because you're an expert at reading Google. I'm not here. This is open to be a debate. Nobody has to be right or wrong. I'm suggesting this on the basis of what I've done personally. I am not a credit expert, and there are no credit experts out there. There's no college degrees for it. I'm suggesting what I materially have done and have helped clients do. If you're struggling with this and you feel like you could use the help, you can always reach out to our office. You probably want to book a 15-minute appointment. We may do one or two, one to discuss it. A second one, if you need me to do the research for you and to help you better your circumstance. It's a hell of a lot better than dealing with $1,200 through an attorney that's going to do one thing every month. He's just going to send out a silly dispute letter. Look, they have automated software now. When you fill out their forms, it automatically generates a dispute letter. And every month, the printer kicks out a dispute letter, and then they do that, put a stamp on it, roll it out, and they collect your $300 from you. That's what that law firm does. When you get to the end of 12 months, nothing's changed, right? And so at the end of 12 months, you now have paid out, almost $1,500? And you're like, well, what the fuck just happened? Yeah, and you know why collection agencies talk to you? They won't do any debt settlement because they don't want your problem to go away. You're paying them. You're paying layaway against something they're never going to fix. You know how many law firms do this? The ones that are real shady? We're talking about Better Call Saul, but worse. So all of them out there running these credit schemes and all that, look, they're doing nothing different than you can't do yourself. You get your good dollar, go to the dollar store, get you some chapstick. Okay, fire up the coffee pot, have a couple cups of coffee, and then you get on the phone and be brave. My name is Sally Mae. I've got $1,000 debt. I'm prepared today, and I want you to understand, I'm prepared to make an offer. But if you guys don't accept it, when I hang up this phone, the debt will die, and I'll watch it drop off in 7 years. I'm not joking with you. I'm going to offer you 40%, $400. The offer is good for today only. We can take it or leave it. Okay, but it's for removal. And then they're going to try to talk you up. Nope, I said 40%, 400 today. Go get a manager, and 99% of the time, the manager come back. Look, we don't do 40. Look, I'm going to hang up. When I hang up, I'm not going to make that offer again. I'm offering you 400. That's and you tell them I got no more money. I was in my kid's bedroom. I had my pliers up. We pulled the gold tooth out. This is all the money we got. We went and sold that gold tooth. There's not another dollar in my purse. So when I hang up this phone, you never get it paid again. So do you want to accept the 40%, 400 to remove, to be clear, to remove the debt, or hang up? And that's the end of it. I'll watch it. You get nothing. You get no dollars. Buzz, go on and sell it 10 more times to somebody else. You losing money right now, and I'm hanging up. Or are you ready to accept payment? Every flipping time I did that, even with the manager, they accepted graciously, damn it. Okay? Some would try to argue, oh, well, we see the debt. They have different ways they like to talk about. We see the debt's only 2 years old. It doesn't matter, honey. When the phone hangs up, it means you got no money. Let them do their talking. They're going to twist it around. Oh, that's a different kind of debt. Oh, that debt's too young. It's this, it's that. Look, the phone hangs up over one way. When I go ching, you get nothing. Nobody gets paid. Okay? No paycheck for you. They come to their senses. It only takes about 8 minutes to clear that kind of deal with them. I cleared it 7 times. Turns out they all operate the same way. But once they run out of shit on their list to make excuses about, and you get the manager and he runs through his short list of shit, it always ends the same way. When I make that final threat to hang up the phone, and I tell them how to do their job. Go ahead and sell your debt. Go ahead, let your CEO, go ahead, get a stamp ready because you're fixing to sell this debt. You're not going to make no money, and I've wasted your day. Same thing. Yes, sir. You have a credit card hands so we can get this paid off? Okay, let's do it. Remember, removal. Got you on recorded line here. And sure enough, 30, 35 days go. So I realize not everybody's made money, but look, I don't take shit off my own clients. So when I was solving those debts, let me tell you, I dropped my tone to baritone on that phone. I made them understand that, look, I mean business. Okay? This ain't the time to sell me anything. I don't want any credit protection, nothing. You can accept this or I'm done with your ass. Okay? I will wait. I will roll in my coffin and watch that debt. You'll make nothing. You clocked into work today. You're not going to leave with a paycheck, partner. You really want to do that? Keep talking, sell me some shit. Then accept that debt. I'm going to pay it or I hang up. And that's the reality of the end of the deal. You have more power in the circumstance than you think. So in order to do these things and negotiate these debts, you need to get all 3 credit bureaus because some debts are going to land on two credit bureaus while others may land on just one, or some debts may even land on all 3. Depending on where you get loans, credit cards, and so on, they may use multiple agencies, 2 or 1. And so you'll notice your scores are way up and down depending on how many bureaus were used to check. So it would make sense that car loans and homes, being the biggest debts that a human usually incurs, that usually debts will be across the board. So they're going to be checking all 3 credit bureaus. They're not just going to pull your TransUnion score. And the last thing they're going to do is insert $1 to get a free, silly Vantage score. I'm telling you guys, the free banking apps and credit scores that give you these marvelous to the moon scores are specifically designed for credit card offers, nothing else. That ain't gonna, let me tell you, that credit score you got on your free banking app ain't gonna get you a fucking cardboard box. That's what you're gonna end up getting for a mortgage. They're not gonna check no Vantage score for you to purchase a house, okay? I hate to let everybody's dreams down, but look, those Vantage scores are good for one thing only, okay? They allow everybody to tell everybody. You guys went along thinking you had badass credit. Turns out you went to MyFICO. You're looking wretched in there. Okay, TransUnions, they're using profanities about you. You missed so many payments, okay? So don't worry about Vantage talking about gold credit scores. You're running a 900, and you get over there and you go to MyFICO, and it turns out the real credit bureaus tell you, hey, you know what? We can't stand you. We put a hit on you. We don't like that you got this many debts, okay? You're a serial not payer. So to bring a little humor in this. So to improve your circumstances in states like New York and California and many other states that have high rental markets, you need to be able to compete in the 670s. And to get there, to get that 100 points is a lot easier than you might imagine. Most of you are in a very good range if you're even at 580. Now, when you start getting at 500 and below, that's going to be a real hard road to recovery because you've done some devastating things. Okay. It means you've probably been through a bankruptcy or you're an epic non-payer or you're on ESW because every credit card you've ever owned, you opened up chargebacks based and committed fraud, all over the place with all these different stores and businesses. So nobody wants to mess with you. So that's how it goes. I hope this helps gives you some basic insight. This was the video was not designed to be a technical video on credit resolution. It was meant specifically for those in the Section 8 market for home ownership and rentals. It was meant to deliver the message in a very human and ordinary way, not to sit here to test my wisdom of acronyms and legalese and federal law, okay? It's just meant to show you how to resolve your debts and understand better at a basic or principal level how you can go and bump your credit scores up about 100 points if you put a little effort into it. If it's beyond your means or you have a ADD or other things, then reach out to my office. Though I'm not free, I'm a hell of a lot cheaper than dealing with a law firm or you wandering in circles trying to figure it out, okay? I've helped plenty of clients with it. I can advise you on it. This is not a serious subject matter. It's actually much easier than you thought. Even I thought that this was a big deal when I had problems myself. And so once I took the leap and just went out there and did it myself, got tired of being robbed by law firms and credit repair companies, it turns out I did more in 1 week than those guys did the whole year. I could have paid a lot of my debts off just from what I paid them. But that's the game for them. It's a game. Okay. So I hope this helps you. I know many of you are wondering about next year as we move into the new year, and a lot of you guys are going to be new renters. Many of you are going to be capitalizing on housing or trying to keep it. And I think this will help you if you're willing to take the step, open your mind. You can resolve your own debts. You don't need any lawyer. You don't need a credit repair company, none of that stuff. I can explain a lot of it in 10 or 20 minutes to most of you, even through my office. By the time we get to a second call for 15 or 20 minutes, we can review what you've done, make sure you have the right dialogue, and you'll be on the way. It won't be long before you start seeing your credit score jump 20 and 30 points. Now, if you've wrecked your credit altogether, then this may be pointless. We would only be trying to remediate the damage for a future attempt at renting. But that is the reality. So if you missed any part of this, I'm going to advise you rewind like you did the old VCRs. Just hit the rewind button. And we covered quite an expansive number of topics. But it's simple, down-to-earth advice that I know is good. How do I know? I did it myself. Simple. It's on my own authority. It's demonstrating, done it myself. I've enjoyed talking with you guys. I'm going to answer a few comments here before I go. Take a sip of my Red Bull. Oh, goodness. Oh, God. Yeah, I got to tell you guys, when I made the video yesterday, I had so many trolls hit me, man. You wouldn't believe some of the awful things they said. I'm one of those people I like to engage. So I went back and told them I used a lot of profanity. I don't like talking to my viewers that way. But they left some awful comments. All we were talking about in that last video was some basic stuff, but people were mad about that. It's funny how you can hit a hot button with people. All right, Phyllis Salazar, good morning. The Easter, good morning, everybody. Let's go, Yolan, good morning. Easing, good morning. Are you open to mentorship? Of course, yeah. I think everything that we could discuss probably be, like I said, though my office is not free, we can probably resolve most questions in 15 to 20 minutes. Probably mentor some of you 1 or 2 times, maybe 3 or 4. Probably barely even cost you $100, okay? It beats the hell out of you learning the hard way, and many of you already learned with that credit repair shit. Okay, this is why credit reporting companies do not want to resolve debts. They want you on a payment plan forever. Same thing with the law firms, which turns out it's not even the lawyer doing the work, it's actually secretary. They actually have credit repair software now. And you would think, okay, software must have some secrets in it. No, it doesn't. It shows you how to scam somebody for 12 months and not do shit. And then show they're delivering letters. You know why they mail them letters back to you? Because they got a tracking number. So if you ever have a beef with them with the credit card company, then with that tracking number, they can show they delivered the services. You see how shady that shit is? I just explained to you guys in 50 minutes, everything you really need to know, including how to negotiate your debt, and did cost you a fucking penny. Easy, good morning. You open the membership? Yes. Mimicky, good morning and welcome back. Sepha, good morning. Credit, golden handcuffs, yes, but it is necessary if you want to own something in this country. Okay, I'm not saying anybody has to agree with credit. Okay, I know there's people against it, but you're going to need it for certain things while you live on this earth. Okay, when you get to heaven or hell, they don't care about your credit card number or your score. If you got bad credit, it ain't going to put you in hell. But Be Savage, good morning. I have no credit, not good. Look, no credit is not a bad thing. If you've got no credit at all, it would take only 6 months to have amazing credit. Why? Because also do I know how to actually fix people having bad credit through debt resolution. If you've got zero credit, nothing on there, I guarantee you in 6 months, I can show you how to give yourself about not 800. I'll get you probably over 760, okay? Put that stuff on auto pay, you'll be good for life. That's easy to fix. Anybody here that has nothing on their credit reports, look, I'm telling you, 3 months to 6 months, you'll have an amazing score. You'll watch that thing pop about 200 points. It'd take me about 20 minutes to explain what you need to do with that, and you'll be thanking me later. Skogeland, would my credit score matter if I formed an LLC? Well, I mean, in principle, it doesn't affect it. Just remember, when you have a tax entity, okay, so limited liability company or corporation, you have a different line of credit with that. So when you contacted IRS, they gave you an EIN, employer identification number. Your company is its own entity. It can be charged with a crime, it pays taxes, and it also has its own credit score. Okay? That's why banks these days got smart to the games they played in the 90s. When people ruin their personal credit, they try to open up business credit. Now most banks will look at everything. And so bank and personal credit is usually commingled. In other words, they'll look at both if they're aware. Would my credit score matter if I formed an LLC? So I answered that. Advantage, I believe. Well, guys, if you're just working on your free score or you're paying per dollar per score, you need to graduate out of that, okay? Has anything ever in this world come out of anything good that's free? Okay? Do I need to tell you anything about that? It'd be worth paying the $40 to truly understand what the bank's credit card company's number is seeing, okay? I mean, the longer you say dead set on all this free shit, that's how you get yourself in trouble. And for many of you, that's how you end up not knowing the true reality of things. These free scorers are free because they're nonsense in a lot of cases, even from your own bank. Now, if your bank wanted to do you a real favor, they show you your FICO score. They don't do it because they know they can give you a PG advantage because it costs the bank nothing to do that. That's why they do it. They're giving you the free stale cookies in the lobby. They're not. You think Wells Fargo, Bank of America are going to pay the FICO company $50 a month to give you a credit score? Shit, no. You're not worth that to them. So they give you the free shit they get from manage, the real highlighted, the big whopping score that nobody's going to use to actually determine your credit. By the way, Vantage scores also, when Vantage scores are becoming more prevalent, like I said, if you're doing buy now, pay later, you got a good Vantage score, then you're going to be good with buy now, pay later, BLMPs. You'll be good with credit cards, but it ain't going to help you buy your automobile, home, or rent anything, okay? So just keep that in mind. So your Vantage score is worth something. If you are the master of credit cards and buy now and pay later, yeah, you get 5,000 credit. But if you're dealing with the real things, the bigger things in life, you need your FICO. It's good to understand both. I would recommend a person make it a practicality to not only have all 3 credit bureau scores plus your full report and risk assessment score, but also get all 3 advantages. And guess where the advantage scores come from? Each credit company. So advantage scores, like I said, what they don't tell you is the credit company, each one has them. TransUnion, Equifax, and the other, right? So each one has a Vantage score on you as well. They're the ones that created this stuff, but it's specifically, again, designed for credit cards, BLMPs as well. And so you'd want to get those scores if you want to know your health. But I can tell you that Vantage scores are already absurdly high. I've got people coming in, they got bad credit, but their Vantage score is flipping 860. Are you kidding me, man? So, anyways, happy holidays. Good morning, Jay and Kitties. Thank you. Who wants to see a Kiki? I got a Kiki here. Let's see if we can get her. There she is. She's keeping she had morning treat, and she's the TV manager. As you see, she's been controlling the channels we watch. She said this morning that she would like some Christmas music, but I told her that we can't play Christmas music on YouTube because I'll get a copyright strike for playing Christmas music on YouTube. They don't like you to play anybody else's stuff unless you pay them. All right, so moving from there, Be Savage. My score is below 520. Well, that's without knowing you've checked all 3 credit bureaus, okay? And so it's worth looking into. No matter what your scores are, you need to look into it anyways. You need to know what you face. And for many of you, you may be at the threshold where many of these debts are going to drop off. And so while you may be below 500 or even in the 400s, it's worth going into your history to find out if you're near the end of the line on this deal. That's why I advise people that have destroyed some of the credit card with a bunch of late payments. Look, the credit card will continue to run with those late payments on there for an eternity because the car's still alive. You've got to convince the credit card company to get rid of you. So let's just think about this logically. I got a Visa, right? It's worth $5,000. I've missed 16 payments. I'm horrible. Nobody wants to touch my it. But instead of you just letting that card, don't pay it no more and let it die and then go to collections, you keep that thing running. But while you're keeping it running, it's going to run for the eternity of your life because the line of credit remains open. It doesn't have a 7-year limit. You see, my boy, you got to kill that. I don't mean close the card. Send it to collections, negotiate the debt, man. Don't sit there and let that credit card wreck you for the rest of your life. Late payments don't disappear up to 7 years. It's going to remain on there, okay? And the longer you got that card, the longer you got problems. Hope Rose, some original creditors simply send their debt to the lawyer to sue. That is true. I've never experienced that. So it does depend. Lawyers settle out of court 98% of the time. I bet those debts can be settled for way less. People are too scary about attorneys. I've dealt with lots of them. A lot of them call my company. For those that don't know, my name is Jay. I'm the owner of Section8Consultant.com. We work with lawyers all year long, law firms and PLCs, and I've been to many different court cases to testify on behalf of clients and circumstances. So there are really brilliant attorneys. There are law firms that are amazing, but a lot of attorneys, I'm telling you, if you met them, you wouldn't think they're much smarter than you are, or that singularly that's the only thing in life they're good at. I met so many of them that didn't even pass the basic bar. In other words, had I not known they were a lawyer, I would have thought they were the stupidest asshole at a bar. Okay? Do not give these people, do not make them into more than what they really are. They don't hold that much power. In fact, most attorneys, they're going to settle for the lowest. They'd rather settle the matter than waste more of their time. You guys, you get too scary about attorneys. I've dealt with them a lot of times. Okay? Can also go into Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Well, that's a whole lot of bullshit, okay? Let me tell you why. You can go to the actual companies and do that, but you'll need to go through about 10 pages of verification. If you don't remember your addresses going back to 1987, then you see where there's going to be problems. So you can go do that if you wish, okay? And get your free credit score, then mail it to you in a month or two. But if you're trying to solve problems now. So I'm not discouraging reaching out to the actual credit bureaus, but a lot of you even I tried that shit. I only managed to get it from one, and that's because they ask you questions about every card, debt, about your mother's, your great grandma's middle name, shit you're not even going to know. It was crazy. And so I felt irritated after, spending 6 hours, and I only ever achieved actually getting through to a total of two of the three because they were too extreme in the nature of questions, proofs, and it was a fabulous waste of my fucking time when in fact the goal was to understand a few practicalities, my credit score, and where the late payments were, where the collections were, all that sheets for $40, or you could sit there for 6 hours and go back and forth to be interrogated by each agency to get a free score that way. And you're welcome to it. If you remember all that shit, go ahead. Look, I'll look at my time, the value of my time. I'm not going to clock into work and deal with the credit bureau directly just for a free credit score and then spend 2.5 hours answering questions. That was the experience I had with it. I don't think it's any different than anybody else, but go ahead. Can you also go to, okay, so Hope Bros, landlords are checking assets, mostly checking your savings account. They can't check your anything. Okay. Banks are federally protected. Okay. Landlords don't have that, and nor do they indicate that. IRS and the bank are federally protected. They don't give out that information, period. Now, if your landlord asks for a statement, that's fine. But I mean, that's elemental. They don't have any way they can log into your banking. Greetings, everyone. Good morning, Shamika Jackson. I like that name. Pretty cool. Shamika, happy holidays. 3 Blade in the ceiling fan. How can we contact you? So I'm gonna put up some information here, guys, for those of you. I put it in all my videos, and I also put it top of the video here. I'll add it again for those that want to reach out to my office just to discuss it. Okay. I'm not, like I said, I'm relatively inexpensive. I think it's around $45. We've covered most territory with you guys and help you understand what you need to do. The goal is to make you self-sufficient. It's not for me to open up an entire case where we have to work together 6 months. I can explain what needs to be done. We do a checkup later and then see whether you're actually doing this right. Okay. So it's a rather simple process. I have any interest in becoming a credit company or anything like that. I just feel that a lot of you guys are being misled by the law firms and credit repair companies paying fabulous amounts of money for stuff that I could tell you how to resolve on your own. Hope Brothers, try to keep at least one credit card for as long as you can. Just good advice. Be savage. Penny for your thoughts. How about 2 pennies, not just one? My son's mother. You mean Nicholas B. Savage pennies are no longer minted? Huh. Laura, it helps if you know credit laws. I played that. That is true. Okay. So just like the other person said earlier about, reaching out to the actual agencies, and I indicated that can become lengthy. You can also use credit laws. Okay. But our goal, again, we have to look at, there's 2 things I look at when I'm trying to resolve problems with casework with clients. Okay. I'll look at the energy expended and the amount of time. Now, what you're suggesting is perfectly legitimate. You could understand federal laws and state laws related to credit. Okay. But then you're expending a massive amount of time in the hopes to remove things or persuade them to do otherwise. I'm talking about the most efficient way and not expending all that extra energy. Just like writing out all these silly letters and dispute things, when in fact their algorithms determine it based on your data. And then some would argue, well, why don't I just have my information wiped off the data broker sites? Again, more money, more time. And that's where we go from simple to a little bit more elaborate to do that. So I'm not discouraging that. That's an option, you guys. That is a branch on the tree you can explore. But that's where, look, I've already been down several rabbit holes with this shit. What I've explained in this video at about an hour is the fastest possible way to do it. Now, if you want to go in down these other rabbit holes, whether you're reaching out directly to the agencies, disputing everything, and then you're being rejected 100 times, understanding the law, suing, and all this other stuff, if you've got 10 years of your life to give, go ahead. I'm not going to discourage it, by all means. But for everyday people just trying to get on with their business, what I've suggested is, in my opinion, the simplest way. You can remove all addresses in employment. I did it. Yep, you can do that. That's fair. Laura, yeah, oh man, no, I didn't. Okay, I'm not sure what that's about. Hopeless. I tell people to move to a cheaper part of town, a country. Getting housing in Silicon Valley is rough because you're competing with people who have a lot of money. That is true. Maybe all Kincaid. I love that name. Doesn't HUD, PHA check. Let's make a distinction here. Not every public housing authority is interested in your credit. Their job is to determine whether or not you're worthy to qualify for a housing choice voucher or subsidies, right? Now, in some circumstances, to help the housing authority not waste their time and giving out vouchers to people that would never be able to rent, they may check your credit. But a lot of them don't do that. They just go on, even though they know that you probably, no landlords are ever going to let you use that voucher. They give it to you anyways. So some prefer to use the giving of the voucher away more efficiently by seeing if you at least have enough credit to be able to rent from a landlord, while a vast majority of the PHAs or public housing authorities in America do not check credit. The reality is whether you get credit checked by your PHA or not, many landlords will, unless you get into the lower scale or tier of properties nationwide. Tangible hope. God, the Lord came in the flesh as the image of God. I'm not sure what all that's about. I appreciate your religious stuff, but this ain't the place for it, okay? This not Sunday worship. I got nothing against God, but we're not doing that right now, okay? Merry Christmas, great info. Thank you. Our local churches will help you with a month of rent and to a cheaper part of the country. Well, that sounds like good news. Yeah, I'm going to try it your way. I did it the long way. Of course, we all have. Look, at the end of the day, when you're sitting in your own private home, we all think we're the smartest asshole in the room. So what do? We use all of our Google wisdom, and then we go down many rabbit holes. Well, I've got these debts. I'm going to get them removed. I'm going to dispute everything. And then you see that don't work. Then you start getting a little bit more desperate. You start looking at the people that can help you get the shit removed, right? Credit repair. And then you get robbed and you realize they're not doing shit either. Then you get real serious. Now you've been ripped off, you're mad, and then you contact Ernie. Now, surely he won't burn me. And then they level you for a real big amount. And then you start to discover as he's working, he's not doing much either. Then you investigate further and you become enlightened. You realize, well, shit, the easiest way really is to negotiate debts. I was wondering why the attorney and the credit repair company don't want to do that. It's easy. They no longer get paid. And so as you chase the rabbit holes, then you got your legalese people. Spend all day. I'm going to read every federal code. I'm going to get them. We're going to the Supreme Court. I'm going to fry that bitch. I'm going to own that. I'm going to own the credit bureau. So you get on, 11 years pass, you're on the oxygen machine, you're holding your last breath, and then bam, you lose the court case, and fuck it, you die, and you can't even afford to rent a coffin. So by all means, guys, if you've been down the rabbit hole, you deserve an award, an Academy Award. I did it myself. I thought I was the smartest asshole in the room until I realized sometimes, and here's the best advice I'm going to give you, sometimes the easiest solution is the most obvious. Okay? Offer a little something against the debt and ask for it to be removed. Or you could chase laws, court dates, disputes, and all kinds of shit. And then 3-4 years later, when your hair's falling out and you're in the ICU and your credit's still trash, then you go, you know what? That dude was right. I should have just picked up the phone, offered them 40% on the debt, tell them, hey, it's only for removal. And look, you could have been done 60 days later. But hey, you know what? Credit repair, credit attorneys, rabbit holes, y'all can pursue the shit out of it. Spend all your Christmas. Go ahead. Might as well take your Christmas tree, put it in the station wagon, roll that fucker down in the pawn shop and pawn it. You're going to go down there and get you a rabbit hole solution at the credit company. They're going to talk beautifully to you. You should meet the lady. Now, the lady that sells you that absurd plan for $300 a month, now you don't want to go talk to her sister. That's the lady when you call over there and you bitch ain't nothing happening and that you're upset nothing's getting done, then you're going to speak to a demon. She's going to talk to you a little bit differently than the first lady that sold it to you. You'll learn about these credit repair companies. You also learn about the attorneys that have unplugged their telephones. They only communicate by email. There's a reason why. Because you're a fucking joke to them. They're not aiming to fix anything. They're just writing demand letters. That's all they're doing. The credit bureau, they know about a human there. You're going to be reviewed by an AI. It'll be scanned into a machine. The AI is going to look at it. We verify that we believe that you're a liar. That's the end of it. A fucking rejection letter. In fact, the minute it gets past the machine, it comes out rejected. And then with a company stamp, it flies back to you. And then you seal the deal. You have not been granted a pardon by the governor from your credit. Okay? There's nothing worse than seeing somebody act trashy. They know they wouldn't spend all that money. They know they burnt your credit company, and now they want to play some games and dispute it. Look, you think that algorithm is buying your bullshit? Go ahead and chase that rabbit hole. Okay? Oh, well, I had narcolepsy. I didn't know I charged all my cards. Okay? When you start drinking your own Jim Jones Kool-Aid, that's where you lost yourself. That's what we all have to do for Christmas, is stop believing our own bullshit. If you stop doing that, you come to reality and do the adult thing, then this whole, what I discussed today, is going to help you. But if you're going to continue to drink Jim Jones's Kool-Aid and buy your own bullshit, then to no avail. Chase all the rabbit holes you want. We're all being genuine here. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's intelligence, but sometimes I got to talk to you like your mama and your daddy. Okay? Many of you are low income. You know you fucked this shit up. I'm telling you how to unfuck it. Now, if you leave the video thinking you're still the smartest person in the room on the basis of a little bit of advice, then you haven't learned a fucking thing about life. You're not going to win every war in life. You're not going to scam your way out of everything. You're not going to go burn the credit card company without a cost, okay? The shortest path to getting yourself and getting your shit back together so you can be like the other 70% of America that actually pays their fucking bills would be to go and settle the debt like an adult. Not chase rabbit holes, not run down federal laws, and then actually believe that you're not a thief. Now, I'm not suggesting anybody here is a thief or did things intentionally, but I'm just loving with people the same way your mama would. Slap the taste out your mouth and let you know the shit you pulled is the reason your ass is in the situation you're in now. Same thing I've told my clients. They don't like it. I tell them, they get smart about that. Look, you put your ass in it. I'm offering you a bridge. You're drowning and you're trying to tell me how to do my job? I don't think so. So today it was an olive branch. I even made my own admission by putting my own personal business in the street, discussing having collections myself, even late payments, to be able to connect and let you know it's real. And I was able to resolve those things through a detrimental part of my life. And so I hope y'all take it from there. But if your only goal is to twist this into something to prove that somehow you don't owe anything to anybody, well, you haven't learned anything. You're not ready. You've not lived. Look, you ain't lived enough life yet. You need to ask God to forgive you, man, because you're still not ready for life. So I hate to be mean-spirited, but shit, man, I'm not one to sugarcoat it. I'm not running a donut shop. You want sugar-coated shit, then go down to the donut shop. We got to get real in here, man. Okay? It's either going to be me or your mama's going to get you. Because somebody got to tell you what you're doing. You got to get straightened out, partner. You can't retire with a credit score of 200. So the path you take is your choice. This is a short path. There are longer ways to do it. We can play all the laws and games you want. But in the end, it all comes back to one thing. How quickly do you want this? And move on. And you've learned your lesson. Put shit on auto pay. Don't spend money that you ain't got. And if it's a holiday of friends or whatever, stop spending money based on your emotional needs. I'm even guilty of that shit. How do you think I ended up with 52 credit cards? Shit, you know, we have a tough life, and hey, why not get out the old Chargy card, roll down to the store? I'm sure I can buy myself a better mood. We've all been there, been the same way, no damn different. We're all designed with the same brain. Some of us just take it farther than others. So, look, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you. I hope you all have the merriest of Christmas. I'm going to make a video tomorrow and the next day. Why? Because I know that most of America is a captive audience. You got to be sitting at somebody's Christmas dinner table, and I know a lot of you going to be on your phone because you get bored. So you bet my ass will be making videos when I have a good, juicy Captive audience. I learned about these holidays. You guys are captive. See, I'll be on YouTube and all kinds of shit. Well, I'm going to get my lick in there. So we'll be talking about a lot of things for Christmas Eve. I'm going to be in everybody's home in America for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I don't give a damn if you're opening gifts or not. I'm going to be there running my lips, carrying on, long-winded bastard. All right, guys. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah. Or if you ain't doing nothing, then happy whatever it is you do. All right. We'll see you again tomorrow.